Hello, this is Václav, and right next to me is Peter. And we designed the Ikarie filter together, and I would like to take this opportunity and chat to Peter a bit about the collaboration process between us and also about the filter itself, because I'm actually really proud of how the filter turned out. And yeah, so Peter, what do you think are the strengths of the filter?
Well, I'm also proud of how it turned out.
Nice.
I think it's a collaboration success story. Um, with when you're designing modules, these things can really take on a life of their own. They can go off, leave home, and never come back. You never finish these projects, but this one really came together really strongly, and it brought a lot of strengths from a lot of people, us primarily, but the whole team really brought a lot to this. So I'm really happy with where it's at, and yeah, there's a lot of strengths to talk about. I'm finding that it just works its way into any patch I'm making. It's got a breadth of features that just kind of lend themselves to anything. But what to sort of like any patch that you need a VCF, VCA in. But what I'm really enjoying about it is that it's it has this element that I really appreciate in modular, which is it brings something to the table. It doesn't just do your bidding. It doesn't just, you don't just say, I need to filter this frequency in this way. Mm-hmm. It really brings its own character, and we really designed it to take advantage of that. So the resonance characteristics, which I think we'll probably talk about a bit more.
Yeah.
And especially the envelope follower.
Yeah, exactly.
That was really the big thing for
me. When we were doing this, like, you were like super obsessed with like the very details of the resonance behavior and how it reacts with many different signals, and you did like really intense testing, and you wanted always my opinion on all the different versions. I don't know if
there were a lot of versions.
Yeah, there were a lot of versions, and like I honestly couldn't tell the difference a lot of the times, but like you were like, but it sounds better when you're running certain type of beat through it or something. So I really appreciate how
a few of the different
versions. Nice. I also have some
I have a bunch of the old ones.
Yeah, maybe we can go through them a little later, but
cool.
Basically, what you managed to do is that the resonance is never like nasty. It's never like annoying, which is something that can happen with a lot of filters, especially when you turn up the cutoff to the higher frequencies. It might start to scream, but you did some sort of really clever low-pass filtering and limiting, also with Zener diodes in the feedback path.
You're giving away our secrets.
Well,
no, but there's a few others extra secret ingredients there. But yeah, I mean, it was a lot of this obsessive fine tuning, which it's really nice to see it actually work in the end, because you can go down that rabbit hole for months and months and months. And there's these indistinguishable differences. But in any case, yeah, the idea was that like, it always sounds good. I mean, it's simple. Yeah. It just should always sound good.
Yeah.
And I think we got there.
Yeah, I think it really works with pretty much anything. And also, I really love how interactive the resonance and the input levels are, and how you can overdrive the filter. I think that it like really shows its strength, because it can be like very clean filter if you don't overdrive it, but then it can like sound like very aggressive once you start to pull in a bit more of the input signal, more resonance, and then especially work with the fast envelope follower. I think that's right. Where you get like really interesting characters.
Well, and I think the key here, I don't want to go too far into like saying it's the best sounding, perfect, most precise filter, because that wasn't necessarily even the goal. It's, it's that it's got a really rich personality and that it's very playable. Mm-hmm. I think that's like a lot of the strength, and that was something that was addressed from a couple different fronts. The layout, the way you can play, the resonance with your thumb and the other knobs, the way that you can, everything interacts, the input level, has a profound impact on the resonance, and of course on the envelope follower, which you can bring through the whole system. So it's just very, very playable and playful, has that sort of and also it just sort of passes the like sounds good test.
Totally.
Like, it has that good distortion.
And I also find that like this module is actually really complex in the way like how many different sounds you can get, and you actually really need to spend the time to learn the filter. But then like you can do so many different sounds with quite a fast and minor adjustments. If you really spend the time to learn the filter, you can get to a lot of different flavors like very quickly with the interface. And as you were mentioning, like you can totally play the cutoff and the resonance with one hand. And I really think the basic topology and the layout, how it works with, it's a stereo filter, but you don't have two cutoff knobs. You have like one that goes through low pass and does high pass, and then you detune them. I think that's a strong and very musical application of doing a stereo filter.
And it's also part of the design process that can be really hard to achieve, or that's really like that you really strive for, which is that balance of compromise. And that's an ongoing struggle, or aspiration to find the right level of compromise.
Exactly.
And so we tried some different types of combining features, creating a feature set that had that balance.
So maybe we can now have a look into the process, how this whole project started, what it was supposed to be in the beginning, and what it ended up being. So I think sometime in summer or mid 2019, I basically made this patch in my studio. I don't know if you remember, but I just like I took some of the Bastl modules and basically made the patch with the cinnamon filter, and it did the low pass, high pass, sort of in one knob turn. So I did some VCAs at the outputs, mixing the low pass and high pass filter, and then like switching them. So I made it as a patch, sort of with a bunch of modules, and I showed that to you, and we were like testing it a bit, and then I actually commissioned you because I wanted to use this filter on another module that actually never came out, or we never really finished it. But basically, like the idea was to have like simple mono filter with the low pass, high pass control, and then I asked you if you can like design the analog circuit for it, and then you like put it on the breadboard, and that's where everything started to go a little crazy, right? That's the one I remember.
This is the design that I'll keep forever. I mean, it was a really clever patch, and it was this kind of cool puzzle to figure out if we could implement it in a single module. And not only did we implement it, but we made two of them in one module.
But the idea,
it eventually turned into a stereo.
Exactly. So like once we had the filter on a breadboard, and we tested it a bit more, we actually designed that this deserves to be its own module. And we started sketching, and I think the idea of having stereo filter was kind of on the table from the very start when we decided to make a module out of this, right?
Right. And there was a lot of pressure from the greater team as well.
It's true.
To start going stereo. Which is great.
Which is awesome.
Which is awesome. Because when you're designing something, you can get really focused on a particular thing. So in this case, doing this sort of low pass, high pass, it's a trick. Like there's a trick here. We used some circuit trickery, hijinks, and you can get really distracted by that in how clever it is, and maybe lose some of the bigger picture. So that's part of what's been really great about working with Bastl and the greater Bastl team. You know, there's all these people who have all of this input. It evolved one step at a time for 8 months maybe, until it kind of took its like general form. So, you know, it was the mono, it became its own module, and then the envelope follower was another module that was like the soft pop filter was something that I was working on, which is basically a low pass filter with an envelope follower. And then it was just a long process of sort of layout experimentation. How do we make it really compressed? And look good.
So we started with this version, which was 7 HP. You have the one with the panel, right? Somewhere.
Yeah.
Let's show that. So
yeah.
It was like everything was there except the input level and the beyond output, maybe? Or what is missing? I think like
it's got there's no beyond output, there's no input level. It's got the VCA-CV, the envelope,
but basically like we made this prototype, maybe we made even two, I don't really remember, but the key thing was that like we want a filter with an envelope follower, and this version, it didn't even have the envelope follower switch, so there was just like one flavor of the envelope follower. And as we were prototyping a bit more, we were like, first, like we really need the input level, because it's like like to me it's kind of one of the most important features on the filter. It turns out, like, because that's where everything starts, and that's like how the filter will respond to the signal, and also the gain and overdrive. And the second one was the envelope follower and the switch to go through the slow and mid and the fast. And I think using the three-way switch and having the fast option is something that made the filter like really unique, because you can really somehow inject a bit of the raw filtered signal into the CV path and make the filter like very sort of liquid, you know. And I think that's something that gave a lot of character to the filter as well.
Well, and it allows us to access more facets of like distortion. So, you know, you've got the overdrive on the input, but then when you modulate the signal with its own rectified signal, which is what the the fast envelope is, it registers as a kind of intense distortion.
Yes.
So I really like that it's two very distinctly different like families of distortion, not only just more distortion.
Yeah. Exactly. And it's
but, you know, derived.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And it's not even like taking into account like all the external modulation you can put in to distort the signal even more if you modulate in audio rate. So it's just like on its own, it has like all these options. So let's try to sketch out the timeline briefly and just show it. So reach for the breadboard. So that's sometime.
All right. So this was
mid-2019, year and a half ago, or something.
Yeah, this is the summer.
That's the summer 2019, and we got the prototypes, the PCBs, sometime in early 2020, or like in winter 2020.
Was it really that long? Because I think the breadboarding was almost done basically in like 2 months.
Yeah, but I remember we also got the prototypes for the module I was working on, and we fine-tuned some of the stuff there, and then we actually pursued the filter itself. So it actually took quite a long time to get to this prototype, and here it was quite obvious that we need to, you know, that just by adding 1 HP we can like get to like much more exciting looking layout, and we can have like one more knob and one more switch and one more jack. So
Right.
that was like a win-win situation, and I'm really happy we did that because I don't know, I really like the layout a lot more.
Yeah, I mean there was a lot of discussion about the what the angled fader says,
Right.
and I really, yeah, I don't know. I think that level of design is something I really appreciate. I think we both do. You know,
I remember
the visual informs the use in some way.
Absolutely, and we
were
having this discussion like which of the controls should the angled fader be, and I was pushing the resonance somehow, although it like from some perspective it wasn't the one that made the most sense, but in the end when we actually got to play it, it turned out to make a lot of sense because you can like turn the knob with your index finger and you can move the resonance with your thumb.
Okay, which says two things to me. One is, why would anyone need to play both? Why is that a strength of the module that you can play the resonance while you're playing the cutoff? Because in most cases the resonance is, like an uncapped little plastic knob, or, it's some minimal set and forget feature. And this is very much saying to you, through it being a fader, through it being playable, through it being at an angle, it's saying this is actually a key part of the character of this filter, is that filters aren't just cutoff frequency. They actually have this other wild side, and let's embrace it. And I think that really comes through. And that was a big part of what drove us as we designed it.
Yes, yeah. And then, can you show some of those like heavy surgery prototypes?
Well, yeah, there's a whole lot of it. So, it was a lot of this for a year almost, of just getting prototypes. I mean, so like the process, that timeline, I think is interesting because, like I said, like this was 2 months, but then, it was another year almost of, getting the prototypes, modding the heck out of them. Here's, this is like 8 months later or 4 months later, let's say, and that one obviously had to get modded a lot. Some of them are less frightening, but, and a lot of like having to remove chips and it was a really drawn out process. And a lot of it was done over Skype or Zoom or whatever we were using. I think, whatever. I think it was Facebook,
maybe
Messenger video. But yeah, we had to do a lot of it remotely, which is its own crazy challenge. But it somehow worked out.
Yeah, it worked out, and I actually didn't expect that this could work so well. So, that's something that maybe people don't really know who follow Bastl for a while, because most people know that you moved to Brno. When was it? Do you remember it? 2016?
Jeez. Yeah, I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah, in fall 2016, and you lived with the Bastl people for 3.5 years, something like that. You lived in Brno?
Yeah, 3.5 years.
So we've been collaborating closely together, and then in fall 2019 you moved back to US. So you're in Vermont, Burlington. Is that correct?
Yep.
So.
Yeah. Living in Burlington, beautiful Burlington.
Yeah. So, and I'm now in Prague, so I go to Brno
we both
quite close, but we both moved, and so a lot of the collaboration has been like long distance, and this is not by far the last project that you're going to see as our collaboration. There is a lot more in the pipeline. I can say that.
And somehow, secret projects, but somehow I think this speaks a bit to the compromise thing, or the limitation of the we were saying about like compromising the feature set to get that right balance. There's something about sometimes this distance hasn't been all bad, and when I was like saturated in the broth of the modular everything. It was just modules everywhere all the time, and I think maybe I got a little I don't know, lost in the fantasy land. In any case, I think that it's really helped us to like motivate some of these projects, and there's been like really great progress. So
yeah, it's kind of a little bit ironic that we're finishing some of our best collaborations when we don't live in the same place, but that's that's life, I guess. But
that's life,
right?
But it has driven us to focus on the most important projects, and that's been a really great thing.
Yeah, but also I think all the experimentation we were able to do like in real life was like very, very important.
Absolutely.
in the
Absolutely. I had a great time there. I'm really happy to be in Vermont, but I had a fantastic time living in the Czech Republic and being in the midst. So
cool, very nice. So I think this might be it for the talk. Is there something we didn't say, Peter?
Well, I mean, so we talked a bit about features, and I think, whether it has to be now or maybe there's a better time to really get into this, but there's things about this that I'll just say quickly beforehand. Part of what I really like about designing stuff, modular instruments, excuse me. Something I really like about designing modules is that it seems common that you then discover the instrument once it's made. You discover so many things about it. And I found there's a lot of features of this that have proven themselves to be really unexpectedly exciting. And I'm really getting a lot out of the envelope and the VCA. And there's this whole other side to this module where it has this VCA input, and you can control the amplitude. And using that envelope that you can derive from sending it, let's say, a trigger, you can do tons of different stuff with it, and you can make it into a bona fide voice in its own right. By making it resonant. It's got 2 resonant peaks that you can detune. Then it's got an envelope and a VCA. It's like you've got a whole dual. Right.
It can totally be like almost like a digital sounding glitch machine. Like when you do like intra FM and self-oscillate the filter, it can sound like very like glitchy and chaotic. Almost sounds digital, but in some ways, like some of those noises you get are almost like modem type dial or something.
So I mean, it stands on its own as like a generator as much as a processor. Not as much, let's say. It's still, I think, primarily, it's a strong stereo filter, but it has a really strong. It stands on its own really well. I think.
I would also maybe mention that like before you moved to Brno, a lot of the modular designs that Bastl did, or that some of the designs that I made, a lot of them were somehow like building blocks of patches, and they were like very. They have been feature packed, but still they were like clearly distinguishable like function blocks. Something that we've been moving towards more especially with your designs, is that like the module is in a way a complex patch that has some like clever and very like musical control structure. So it's actually, as we mentioned earlier, this started as a patch. But like as a clever patch that you would probably like never want to keep in your system, and by like compressing that sort of cleverness and complexity of the patch into the module, you can actually much more casually reach higher levels of complexity in the modular. So I think also like the design approach somehow shifted from the building blocks to like what actually makes sense, like which tools you actually want to use. because I remember I had like in my live set, I actually had like two master filters. One was in low pass and one was high pass. So if I wanted to do like those sweeps, I needed two modules, and it was in the end it was actually bigger than this, and it was mono. So
Right. Yeah, I mean, and I came into this being much more like unapologetically organic and unruly. I think like the building blocks weren't necessarily there. It was all sort of sass, and so I think that balancing has been really effective, which has been very much like a response to Václav has very high standards world, and he's not shy about sharing those with his collaborators. So that's gotten me to really be super aware and take I take it very seriously that these things should work the way that they should, that you would expect. But yeah, I mean, and that's allowed us. I think this is the kind of design that I certainly prefer, is that you present people with a really well-tuned set of functions that play together really well and do something fantastic.
Yeah, because like here the envelope follower and the overdrive is really fine-tuned for the filter itself. It might work great with something else and you can totally use that, but because it's like really fine-tuned and like well curated by like hours and hours of prototyping, I think it makes it like a really strong instrument.
Yeah, I mean that's it. Always really surprises me how, when I will build things from sort of the generic fundamental building blocks, how much fine tuning it actually takes to make it work within your specific application.
Yeah.
And I would like people to not to understand that this is as Václav just said, this is really countless hours of fine tuning.
Yeah. It's kind of hard to imagine.
No small amount. It's hard to imagine. Even as I always say, it's amazing. Like even as a person that makes this stuff, it's still impossible to know how much work it actually takes. Oh, we're losing our connection here, or we're losing our Václav.
I had to plug in my computer.
Okay. So I don't know. I mean, I think maybe my point about the features could be in another section or something, or we could talk more at some point, or now, or whenever, about different features we like, and it wouldn't just be standing out on its own as this one trick.
Yeah, absolutely. It was really nice talking to Peter again, and I think we can...
It was great to see you and chat.
Take care, and hope to talk to you soon. Ciao.
Good, I look forward to it. Ciao.